Dr. Dan Benishek.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Yoho, for organizing this special order hour. This is one of the reasons I ran for Congress. The abuse of power and executive overreach coming from the White House right now is completely unacceptable. Like many of my colleagues here tonight, I'm a firm believer in the Constitution, and I believe it's the duty of the President to faithfully execute the law, not to willfully ignore it for political gain. A president cannot implement legislation through executive orders or agency rulemaking, and yet we've witnessed this administration launch attacks against the Second Amendment, impose burdensome regulations through the EPA and other agencies, and enact many policies without the support of Congress or the American people. I've spoken to a wide array of my constituents throughout the northern half of Michigan in the time I've been here in Congress, and they're constantly telling me about some new regulation that some federal agency is coming up with that doesn't seem to do anything as far as promoting welfare or improving the environment, but simply making it more difficult for businesses to remain open. And it's really affecting their ability to hire people.
Sure.
In my district, one of the big complaints we've had is the EPA attempting to limit the ability to have a wood stove. Well, it gets pretty cold in northern Michigan in the winter, and people save money by cutting their own wood and burning it in their homes. And then the EPA comes out saying, we can't have wood stoves that don't meet this criterion, and it doesn't make any sense for the people in my district. Furthermore, the EPA's Waters of the U.S. proposal to regulate ditches and man-made ponds doesn't do one thing to truly protect our water resource, and it instead overloads small farmers, loggers, and other businesses with needless red tape and compliance costs. There is a reason that our founding fathers created separate but equal branches of government. Executive branches, agencies like the EPA, are charged with carrying out the intent of Congress. And we've made incredible strides in cleaning up our nation's air and water. However, what happens when these giant bureaucracies start to feel themselves become irrelevant? Unelected bureaucrats begin writing onerous legislation to justify their own existence. And they do this with absolutely no regard for the practical effect that these regulations have on local families and businesses.
Will the gentleman yield for a second?
Absolutely.
I got a notice from the EPA when I first got up here. It was January 2014, and it was a pamphlet with their new rules and regulations. And in that, what they were talking about is that their new rules and regulations would have minimal effect on air quality and human health, but they're going ahead anyways. And I think of the example you brought up about the wood-burning fireplaces. I mean, we've done a tremendous job cleaning up the air quality in this country, as other countries need to, but we shouldn't go after things that aren't going to really have a difference.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I agree with you. In my district, I don't know, it's been several years now, the EPA shut down the construction of a brand new coal plant.
Yep.
Okay? And this coal plant would have been the purest coal-fired power plant in the country, brand new technology. And there's no reason for it being shut down. This plant would not even produce any CO2. The CO2 was being captured from the coal plant and used by industry to create other products. So, this administration has taken on a proposal and used the EPA not to make our environment better, but to have war on coal. I mean, the EPA and the president doesn't talk about making our atmosphere cleaner and more the environment cleaner. It talks about a war on coal. That's just the wrong attitude to have, and it really needs to be directed by Congress. This is unbelievable what we've gone through, and it's caused economic damage to this country. Right now, we're competing with the Chinese, who don't have any significant pollution controls on their power plants. And we've invested billions as Americans, each one of us, by paying for more expensive power to really clean up our atmosphere. What have we done? How are the Chinese doing that? And now that we've basically cleaned up our atmosphere, they want to impose even higher and higher standards that actually are causing our business to go down, and steel production is going over there where they're polluting it worse.
If the gentleman will yield, I think you and I were in a meeting the other day in one of the committees, and we had a fellow, he was an attorney that worked under the Reagan White House, and he worked with the EPA, and he was saying the EPA went from regulations to clean stuff up. Now it's regulations that you can't have coal-powered fire plants. You can't do this. And it was an agency of can't. And I think you were in that meeting, and it was just, it shows again the overstepping of agencies, and it shows that how administrations or executive branches rewrite laws, or they legislate from the executive branch through the administrative agencies, and we've seen an increase in this. You know, and again, it's not just this administration, but I think President Obama, this administration has done us a favor by bringing this to light with the 24,000 regulations that are coming out that are crippling American economy, businesses, and if it's doing that, it's crushing the middle class and the all Americans. And I'll yield back to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Yoho. Well, you know, the things that we're talking about here today really are examples of the federal government getting involved in things that they don't have the right to do. And I think a lot of it comes from these bureaucrats that, you know, are just writing regulations that really you can't comply with. And that's basically the reason that these coal-fired power plants are going out of existence. You know, most of these problems have been eliminated by the work that we've done on improving our environment. And I applaud that, you know, America has made the investment before any other country in making that happen. But to regulate us to the point that businesses are going overseas and polluting the planet worse because of our policies, because if we did the stuff here, we would do it cleaner. I mean, the University of Michigan has had an environmental research station in northern Michigan in my district for the last 60, 70 years. And the scientists at the University of Michigan tell me that most of the mercury that falls from the sky in Michigan comes from China and India. That we've essentially eliminated mercury as a problem in our environment from our industry here. But because we're not dealing with that problem of the Indians and the Chinese doing that, you know, we're ignoring that and actually giving them the ability, like not having to comply with a lot of these rules, the ability to pollute the planet worse than we would do it if we were doing those things here.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
We went to a coal-powered fire plant in our district, and they were saying in the old days, a typical coal-powered fire plant would put out approximately 50 pounds of mercury a year. Today, it's less than 2 pounds. I mean, that's a significant difference from 50 to 48, or to 2 pounds. 50, that's a 48 pound reduction in mercury going into the atmosphere. What's the significance and the benefit going from 2 pounds to 0, and at what cost do you go forward? Being a veterinarian for 30 years, I've never treated an animal with mercury toxicity. And so I think you need to have common sense in regulations, and of course the worst place to go for that is government. And I'll yield back to you. Let you continue.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Yoho for putting on this special order hour, and I'm very happy to be able to participate in it. And I think that we really need to be sure that the American people are aware of what's going on, and that they make their decisions when they go to the polls based on this information. So thank you very much.
I appreciate